What's up, y'all? Focus Daily TV. Another episode. As usual, hit that like button, subscribe, support the channel. Hashtag Focus Daily TV. We're going to go more in depth about this debt. I'm trying to break it down into short increments to make it easy for folks to understand how this debt is affecting us spiritually, mentally, and physically. It affects us to our soul, as the Bible speaks of, that towards the last days they will be selling the souls of men. And this is exactly the process they're using. Debt instruments, legal imparchments, legalese, things of that nature. I like to keep it short and sweet, so let's get straight to it. Got a movie for today about this debt. Let's go.
Without a fixed link to gold, the U.S. Treasury has been able to borrow and spend as much money as it wanted. When the U.S. government needs money, it takes out a loan with the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve prints the currency required for the loan and in return receives an IOU from the U.S. Treasury. These IOUs are called government bonds.
Bondsmen and bondswomen that I speak of. In return for this currency, the United States registers through Social Security cards, birth certificates, and other instruments of that nature. Registering people's souls into bonds, making them bondmen and bondwomen.
With the money provided from these loans, or bonds, the U.S. government pays its bills and obligations. Meanwhile, the U.S. Treasury and the Federal Reserve work closely together to sell these bonds at auction, where foreign central banks, pension funds, and even individuals buy these.
All nations conspired against thee, as it speaks of in Psalms 83.
U.S. government loans. And why wouldn't they? Loaning money to the U.S. government is virtually a risk-free investment. But if the loans are spent on bills and paying off previous loans, where does the government get the money to pay back the current loan and the interest that is charged on it?
Now this is the important part. Time to turn on your discernment caps. Let's go.
Is investing in a U.S. government bond simply one small part in a giant Ponzi scheme?
The Federal Reserve System is definitely a Ponzi scheme. There's no question about it. They go through the appearance of lending money to the governments, and the governments agree to pay back the money plus interest. And so this money comes into being. They create it just for that purpose. They give it to the governments. Didn't exist before that, you understand. Central banks just make it out of nothing and click a few keys on a keyboard of a computer, and the Treasury.
They want you to believe they make it out of nothing, but really it's all powered and backed up by the souls of men, by bondmen and bondwomen, as the Bible speaks of, biblically.
Of the United States government now has another $1 trillion that it can spend. That's where that money came from. And so that creates a liability on the part of the federal government to pay it back, plus interest. Now think about that, plus interest. Well, when it comes time to pay it back, plus the interest, they can't pay it back, and they certainly can't pay it back plus interest too. So what they do is they borrow more to cover the original loan plus.
Let me back this up a little bit. They do pay it back. They pay it back by relinquishing control of those bonds to the money changers, these bankers and tax collectors, if you feel me, what I'm saying.
It comes time to pay it back plus the interest. They can't pay it back, and they certainly can't pay it back plus interest too. So what they do is they borrow more to cover the original loan plus the interest, and then by that time Congress wants more money anyway. So the debt just keeps going up and up and up and up.
Under the current monetary system, we borrow.
It goes into perpetual debt. You can't pay back debt with debt. Treasury notes are debt instruments, which builds up debt, so you can't use those same notes to pay off that debt. However, this is the Focus Daily TV show. Hit that like button and subscribe. The only way that debt or that ransom can be paid by accepting the Father and his Son, Christ, and the Holy Spirit within your life. Christ paid the debt with his life so we could be free from these bonds that were placed upon us by evil, wicked men.
All of our currency into existence, and we promise to pay it back plus interest. If you borrow the very first dollar into existence and that's the only dollar that exists on the planet, but you promise to pay it back plus another dollar's worth of interest, where do you get the second dollar? The answer is you have to borrow that. It's a Ponzi scheme because you can never pay it off. It always requires that we go deeper into debt.
Since 1971, the United States
Perpetual debt, forever and ever. Once again, through Christ and his body, we can be made free. But freedom begins with understanding what's actually going on. That's why we watch these short videos, to get a better understanding of the information that I'm presenting. I can talk all day, but being able to visualize this and hear it from other perspectives is what makes it so powerful. Focus Daily TV, hit that like button, subscribe, support that channel, hashtag Focus Daily TV. Let's go.
States has been running trade deficits with the rest of the world, meaning we've been buying a lot more products from the rest of the world than they have been buying from us. The Japanese and Koreans.
What we're really doing as a people, Black people, African Americans, we are financing all the countries around earth. All countries conspired against thee. All nations conspired against thee. Nations from all over the world come here to this land known as America and extract resources and livelihoods from the true owners of this land. The people who were given this land as a birthright from God himself. They know who we are. But they set up these systems to keep us blind and keep us trapped in the matrix and keep us trapped in the world of Oz until we're so deep in debt that it's impossible for us to escape, because debt is a serious thing. God pays his debt. In the Bible, it says the wicked man borrows and doesn't pay back. So God will most definitely pay his debt. And he paid this debt with his one and only Son, Christ, through his body, through his blood. And that's the good news. Let's go.
Sell us cars and electronics. The Middle East sells us oil. And the Chinese sell us seemingly everything on our Walmart shelves.
Placing us more and more in debt. All nations, see that? Conspired against thee.
The U.S. pays for these products with U.S. dollars, and everyone is happy. But if countries were to convert these U.S. dollar profits back into their own currencies, their currencies would rise in value, making their economies less desirable to trade with. Instead, countries invest their dollar profits by buying U.S. government bonds. So countries around the world sell their goods to the U.S.
You see that? It's just a big cycle that Satan invented to place God's children in debt. However, this does affect everybody in the whole world, no matter who you are. I'm here speaking about the African Americans, the blacks, the Israelites, Jerusalem, the children of God.
U.S. in exchange for U.S. dollars, which have been borrowed through the Federal Reserve, creating IOUs. And countries then loan their U.S. dollar profits back to the U.S. by buying more IOUs. The money from these loans is spent on paying government expenses, as well as paying back previous IOUs. But in order to do this, larger and larger loans must be made in order to pay back the principal and the interest. By paying back old loans with new and larger loans, it would appear as if the entire world has been investing their hard-earned money into a Ponzi scheme of epic proportions.
And there you have it. Another great episode of Focus Daily TV. Until next time, hit that like button, subscribe, most definitely support the channel. Hashtag Focus Daily TV. We out.